When I was doing all my research and gathering information for this video, I thought this was intriguing. I found this on his Instagram in 2017. Not too sure what he meant by this. Maybe he was trying to tell us something or give us a sign. I'll let you guys be the judge in the comment section. Nebraska football is one of the biggest laughingstocks in all college football. They sell out in every single game. They have one of the best fan bases in the nation. Yet despite that, they suck for quite a while now. Maybe me saying they've sucked for quite a while now, that might be over-exaggerating it, but there's one thing for sure we can all agree on: they've been mid at best. It's been a rough stint for Nebraska football fans considering they was one of the premier programs years, and I'm talking about years and years and years ago. Throughout this dark era though for Nebraska football, there was a bright spot for them right around 9 to 10 years ago. When I say bright spot, let me narrow it down here and be more specific. I'm talking about one player only, and that was no other than a quarterback. This is Tommy Armstrong. Going off of this picture, you probably don't think too much about him, but you should. Even till this day, he's Nebraska football's all-time passing leader. He's not third, fourth, fifth, sixth, no. He's number one on the list. If that wasn't good enough for you, how about this? He also ranks first in Nebraska history for completions, touchdown passes, and career total yards. I'm not going to try to sit up here and say that Nebraska's quarterback you because they're not even close, but they've had some notable names and some really good quarterbacks come through that program. So for this young man to rank first in a lot of major passing statistics, I think it speaks volumes. But there's one big problem with this. After Tommy Armstrong played a couple years for Nebraska, he disappeared. I find his story particularly odd just due to the fact, it's not my humble opinion, just going off of the stats and numbers, he is arguably one of the greatest Nebraska quarterbacks of all time. I wouldn't even just say if you're a Nebraska fan, you remember Tommy Armstrong. If you're a college football fan, even to the slightest of bits, you remember him. With that being said, here's the million-dollar question. What happened to him and where did he go? There's many more questions people have been asking about this guy even till this day. But however, it all circles back to the one, and I mean the one big question we're going to try to get to the bottom of in today's video. What really happened to Tommy Armstrong? Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, hope all of you having a great and fantastic day. If not, hope this video can make it a little bit better. And major shout out to Fire, FR, I assume that stands for real, period. He writes, I know you make fun of my Nebraska Cornhuskers, I think he meant to put an S there, but Tommy Armstrong easily a top 5 Nebraska quarterback that never panned out. Fire has recommended this video, so like I said, shout out to him. You can thank him for that in the comment section. And as you all know, your boy Matt is a fan of the people, and I'm going to give the people what they want. Your wish is my command, my brother, and I ain't going to hold you. I've been seeing you recommending this video on the couple of videos. I've been paying attention. I've been seeing the comments. He's recommended this video at least 2 to 3 times, so I guess you could say persistence, it pays off. As always, you know what I'm about to say next. It's the same spielio dealio. If you like the content, consider subscribing. If you have any recommendations for videos in the future, leave those in the comment section. Strap in, buckle up, get you a snack, get your popcorn, get your favorite meal you like to eat and watch a video, because trust me, I do the same thing. But alright, Matt, blah, blah, shut up, crap, up, without further ado. Let's get into it. Woo! Man, oh man, we got good old Tommy Armstrong, and come on, man. You already know, to get into his story, we got to throw it all the way back to where things started. Mr. Tommy Armstrong played his high school football in the state of Texas for Steele High School. Why don't you listen to this? As a senior, he passed for only 1,945 yards. That's not going to turn anybody's head. But he had 29 touchdowns to only 2 INTs. Yeah, that is most certainly one of the best touchdown-interception ratios you're ever going to see at any level. Can't forget to mention, throw in there, he was a dual-threat quarterback. He had 1,281 rushing yards with 16 touchdowns on the ground. Those would be good numbers just for a pure running back alone, but he did that as a quarterback. He did play a little safety and cornerback in high school, and you're probably sitting there wondering, Matt, why you tell me this? Well, you're going to want to remember that for later in this video. It comes back into play, so just store that in the back of your memory. When it was all said and done for his high school career, 24/7 Sports had him listed as a 3-star, but the composite rankings had him listed as a 4-star. I know a lot of people are confused with these rankings, so the 24/7 Sports rankings, not the composite, just the regular rankings, those are their rankings and their rankings only. The composite rankings are a combination of all the other recruiting services. It really depends who you are. Some people prefer 24/7 Sports, some like the composite. We'll give him the benefit of the doubt here and we'll say he was a 4-star recruit. Either way, it really doesn't matter too much. He wasn't some underhyped guy, but he also wasn't a 5-star recruit. He was somewhere in the middle of that. A lot of schools wanted this guy, but ultimately, to make a long story short, he decided to commit and sign with Nebraska. He arrives in Lincoln, Nebraska in the year 2012, and there's nothing to say whatsoever. We're going to skip over that year because he redshirted. Fast forward time into the year of 2013, he was now officially the backup quarterback to no other than Taylor Martinez. Speaking of him, where's he at? What happened to him? We probably need to make a video on Martinez. Let me know in the comment section if you'd like to see that. Anyways, though, continuing along here, as the backup, he did get to play, and he started 8 games that year because Martinez suffered an injury. In that 2013 season, in his first career ever start, he was pretty solid. Granted, Nebraska did play South Dakota State and millie-whopped them 59-20, but he played good. 12 for 15, had 169 passing yards with 1 touchdown, 0 INTs, QBR of 92.2. Look, I get it. It's against inferior competition, but in your first career start, that's impressive. In his second career start, he had to face a Big Ten opponent, and that was no other than Illinois. Nebraska beats him by 20, and Armstrong, yet again, he had a solid performance. 8 for 13, didn't do too much, but he did what they needed him to do, had 135 yards with 2 touchdowns and 0 INTs. As a redshirt freshman, the Armstrong experience was getting off to a really good start. However, with the good, you're going to get the bad. They did win the next game against Purdue 44-7, and you're probably thinking, oh man, Armstrong went off, but no, it couldn't be any more opposite. To say he struggled mightily would be understating it. 6 for 18, only completed 33.3% of his passes, had 43 passing yards, that's abysmal, and had 3, count them, not 1, not 2, but 3 INTs. It was a bad performance. I hate to even talk about it, but like I said, with the good, you get the bad. Moving along here, though, the rest of the year, Armstrong and Nebraska, they were all right. That's all they were. Ending the year on the high note, though, against Georgia, Armstrong had that legendary, and I mean legendary, 99-yard passing touchdown pass to beat Georgia 24-19. Fast forward time into the following year, 2014, it was Armstrong's team, and there was no looking back. To sit up here and say he started the year out hot, that wouldn't do it any justice. Granted, you weren't playing the best of the best competition. I think that's worthy of throwing in there. But unlike current Nebraska, they took care of business. First game against FAU, 15 for 29, had 270 passing yards with 2 touchdowns and 0 INTs, QBR of right at 94.8. He also added a touchdown on the ground in that game as well. They proceed to win their next 2 games against some cupcakes, and then they have a big-time matchup with the U. Was that kind of corny? It sounded cooler in my head saying the U, but we'll just call Miami. You get the point. Nebraska wins this game in an offensive shootout, 41-31, not because of Armstrong, but due to Amir Abdullah's insane performance on the ground. And by the way, we might need to make a video on that guy as well. Amir Abdullah was one of the most underrated running backs I've ever seen and covered. We are here for Armstrong, though, and in that game, he went 9 for 13, had a $113 through the air with 2 touchdowns and 1 INT, and also added 13 carries for 96 yards on the ground. But as you can see here, Abdullah had 35 carries for 229 and 2 tutties. That boy was a monster, man. He was a monster. You look up, and Nebraska is 4-0 heading into a matchup with Illinois. This was an absolute cakewalk for Nebraska. They win 45-14, take care of business, and they got a matchup with top 10 Michigan State. They do lose that game 27-22, but as you can see here, they run off 3 straight against Northwestern, Rutgers, and Purdue. And what was so, I guess you'd say, impressive about this Nebraska team back then in 2014, and I think current Nebraska fans in 2024 wish their team could do this, it's like I said, they were taking care of business. They weren't just skimming by Northwestern, Rutgers, and Purdue. They were beating the crap out of them. They weren't even ball games. Nebraska's 8-1, heading into a top 25 matchup with Wisconsin and Minnesota. Unfortunately, they lose those games back-to-back. They do end the year on a high note, beat Iowa in overtime 37-34, but they lose to top 25 USC in the bowl game 45-42, in which Armstrong played pretty good in. He had 381 passing yards. Before we go any farther, let's talk about this. Sure, it wasn't a legendary season by any stretch of the imagination, but Nebraska went 9-4 that year. And the year prior, although it was an up-and-down year with Martinez getting hurt and Armstrong being this young quarterback that was making some mistakes here and there, they went 9-4 in 2013. So back-to-back 9-4 seasons, you'll take that. What's ironic about it, though, and I remember this vividly, is Nebraska fans weren't too happy about it. And I get it, they were holding them to the gold standard, but it's just funny because fast forward time into our current date, if you were to tell a Nebraska fan, hey, you're going 9-4 in this upcoming season, they say, what, 9-4? That's amazing. It's just funny how much has changed for this Nebraska football program within the span of 10 years. And I think what happened is not only the fans, but that entire program, they got greedy because they were firing head coaches that were going 9-4, 10-3. You got to come to terms with reality. Nebraska is no longer a powerhouse, and they're not a popular school to go to if you're a recruit. I talk to a lot of these 4- and 5-star recruits on an everyday basis, and not many of them are even interested or considering Nebraska. Do as you please with that information. Anyways, we gotta get back on track here. At this point in time in our story, things are looking really good for Nebraska, and the fans, they're hopeful. Like I've already stated a couple of times, you're coming off of back-to-back 9-4 seasons, but more importantly, and this is what had everybody so ecstatic, is you got your starting quarterback coming back for his third season. It would be his fourth season with the program, but really his third year playing meaningful football and being a starter. In 2013, I'll show you his numbers right here. Only completed 52% of his passes, had right under 1,000 passing yards with 9 touchdowns to 8 INTs. In 2014, he completed 53% of his passes, had 2,700 passing yards with 22 touchdowns to 12 INTs. On the ground, though, in 2014, he had 145 carries with 700 rushing yards and 6 touchdowns. That 2015 year is what everybody was pointing at and saying, yep, this is the breakout year for not just Nebraska, but Tommy Armstrong. Sadly, though, it wasn't just not a breakout year. It was an extremely disappointing season, to say the least. Nebraska starts out the season in a terrible way. A 5-point loss to BYU and a 3-point loss in overtime to Miami. BYU and Miami, they're not slouches, but those are games you expected to win. And those first 2 out of 3 games really summed up the rest of the season for Nebraska. Nebraska was 6 games through the year. They lost 4 games, and out of all 4 of those games, your largest loss was 5 points. They was a few plays away from being 5-1, 6-0. That's just how the cookie crumbles, though, and that's how any sport is. I believe every sport out there, it's a game of inches. They do beat Minnesota. They lose to Northwestern by guess how many points? 2 points, and they lose to Purdue in a shootout, 55-45. Armstrong did carry them to a win over Michigan State, in which they won by 1 point. He was 19 for 33, had 320 passing yards with 2 touchdowns to 2 INTs, QBR of 82. He also added 2 touchdowns on the ground. That's why I say I carried them. He was the main reason they won that ball game. It wasn't a good year for Nebraska. You see it. But hey, at least you beat top 10 Michigan State. You then beat Rutgers, and you lose to top 5 ranked Iowa, 28-20. You finish the regular season 5-7. This was one of those years where we didn't have enough bowl eligible teams to play in all the bowl games. So although they were 5-7, they did make a bowl game against UCLA, in which they won 37-29. I'll let you guys be the judge. In 2015, Armstrong completed 55% of his passes, so that increased. He had 3,000 passing yards. That also increased. 22 touchdowns. That stayed the same, so stagnant to 16 INTs. Not going to get the job done. I'm not putting that entire 2015 season on Armstrong, but his lack of success, it definitely played into it. His main problem was the interceptions. He didn't take good care of the football. And to go on top of that, it's not like he was a gunslinger. He wasn't very accurate either. You see the completion percentage. Every year he's right at 53, 54, 55%. Not very good there, but I have a really big but, you better believe this, there was some good news. He could come back for his final season in 2016. And guess what? Your boy Armstrong, he did just that. And 2016 was much, and I mean much better than 2015. Armstrong and Nebraska, they came out with a vengeance, and they started out the year 7-0. Beat the crap out of Fresno and Wyoming. Had an out-of-conference matchup with 22 ranked Oregon. Beat them by 3 points, in which Armstrong only bought the box score. I want to see his numbers. Pretty good. 17 for 33, 200 yards with 3 touchdowns. And here's the key, 0 INTs. On the ground, he was a leading rusher, or tied for a leading rusher, with 16 carries for 95 yards and a touchdown there. The man was balling out. Nebraska continues to run off 4 more straight after that Oregon game, and they're 7-0. I will throw this in here, though. Did they play the toughest of competition in that 7-game stretch? Absolutely not. But hey, a win is a win. I'm not going to try to hate too much. They then ran into really good teams, 11th ranked Wisconsin and 6th Ohio State, in which, yeah, the Wisconsin one, you lost in overtime, so kind of give them a pass there, but the Ohio State one, whew, that was bad. I think you see it, and there's not too much to say about it because it was just embarrassing. We'll leave it at that. After Ohio State gave them a good old butt whooping, they ran off 2 straight against some more not so good teams and then lost to Iowa by 30 points. I really think this box score in the Iowa game, it sums up the Tommy Armstrong experience completely. 13 for 35, barely, what is that, like 36, 37 completion percentage? Buck 25 through the air, 1 touchdown, 0 INTs. That was Tommy Armstrong, man. Just wasn't an accurate passer of the football. I did rewatch some games and film leading up into this video, and yeah, you don't gotta be a rocket scientist to figure this out or even come out with this statement. Nebraska didn't have the greatest offensive line in the world, and they didn't have the greatest weapons at their wide receiver position. But with that being said, even when Armstrong did have time, there was a lot of passes he threw. I'm like, well, how did this guy even get a Division I offer to play quarterback? It's relatively simple. There's one word to describe Armstrong when it came to his passing abilities: inaccurate. Or I guess it'd be inconsistent, or it could be both of them. But anyways, you get the point. After that fantastic 7-0 start, Nebraska finished the regular season 9-3. They did lose the bowl game to Tennessee, but Armstrong did not play in that. If you are curious, though, it was 38-24. They finished the season yet again 9-4. Armstrong for that season had his lowest completion percentage of 51.4. He only had 2,000 passing yards. If you're wondering why that's so low, he did get hurt that year, had 14 touchdowns to 8 INTs. So if you were to double his touchdown to interception ratio, that'd be 28 touchdowns to 16 INTs, so not too much better from the previous year. His quarterback rating in 2016 was also his lowest out of all 4 years playing for Nebraska. Some things in this life are complicated, but this one's not. The man simply didn't get better as he continued to get older and continued to play more football. When I evaluate quarterbacks, that's always one thing I look for. It's the immediate thing I actually look for, is do you get better year after year after year? And if your numbers are staying stagnant, and in this case and scenario, they're kind of getting worse, yeah, major red flag. With his college career coming to an end, he has no choice but to head into the NFL draft. And this is where things get pretty interesting. He decides to change positions. Preparing for the NFL draft, this is when he changed over to a wide receiver. I'm just going to assume here he had some people in his corner telling him, or even people in the NFL telling him, hey buddy, if you want to play in the NFL or have a shot, you guys switch positions. It's not going to work out at quarterback. I'll give him a ton of credit because a lot of players, they have too big of an ego and pride to say, no, man, I'm not switching positions. I'm a quarterback. He didn't do that. Put all of his ego aside and said, okay, I'll do it. Sounds good. And I'll work out my ball skills at the receiver position. You could say things didn't go so well because he didn't even receive an invite to the NFL Combine. To make matters even worse, he was not drafted in the 2017 NFL Draft, but he was given a tryout with the Minnesota Vikings. But listen to this. The Vikings invited him to try out, not as a receiver, as a running back. And then they changed their minds and was like, no, wait. We want you to try out as a safety. And I told you to remember this in high school. He did play safety, so out of all the positions he could switch to, I feel like that was more of a natural one for him. The Vikings did sign him in late May of 2017, but then they waived him in early June of 2017. I believe they only signed him for like 17 or 18 days. You could tell he was never going to get a legit shot there, and here's what he had to say about that. Unfortunately, I got the call that they couldn't make a second cut for me. Just wanted to say thank you to the Vikings for the chance. Armstrong then sent this message to I think it's an article or something like that. Things just didn't work out. Couldn't make a cut for me. And here was the last thing he stated, quote unquote, I'll do whatever it takes to play in the NFL. His NFL career was short-lived, and when I say short-lived, that might be giving him too much credit because nothing after that signing to the Vikings for 17 or 18 days came to fruition. In 2018, he announced that he was signing with the Salt Lake Stallions of the AAF. Then, in early January of 2019, he announced that he's signing with the Nebraska Danger of the IFL, which is the Indoor Football League. And in his first game, he was 8 for 12, had 158 yards with 4 touchdowns. How about that? So, hey, man, the dude had some more juice in the tank. And, oh, yeah, I kind of forgot to throw this in there. He was playing quarterback, which you can obviously assume since I'm talking about his passing numbers. And in that 2019 season for the Nebraska Danger, he was all right, and I think you might could argue and say he was good. Had 1,799 passing yards with 37 touchdowns to only 9 interceptions. He also led the league in rushing and rushing touchdowns with 720 rushing yards and 26 rushing touchdowns. Yeah, that's pretty dang good and pretty efficient. When it was all said and done for that 2019 season, Armstrong was named the Indoor Football League Offensive Rookie of the Year. Fast forward time into 2021, he posted this on Instagram and it caught some people by surprise. Today's a very special day for my family and I. I officially accepted the OC job at North Star High School. I'm beyond blessed to join the coaching staff and look forward to the upcoming season. Now, let's get to work. Now you may be sitting here saying, well, man, why did that catch some people by surprise? Well, most people didn't think he was done playing football for the Indoor Football League, and they thought he wanted to continue to play football. And then out of nowhere, he comes out and announces, hey, I'm accepting an offensive coordinator job. And that's all great for him, but listen to this. In 2023, he gets back into the indoor football scene, and he signs with the Omaha Beef. Yes, that is a real team. I also think it's kind of funny. The Omaha Beef. Actually, my apologies. I said in our indoor football league. Their official term, I said official, Matt, you idiot, official term is National Arena League. And you could say, oh, Armstrong here, he was pretty good for the Beef because he led them to an undefeated season. So he led the Beef to a championship in 2023, and most recently, in his current season, 2024, he led them to another championship. My man's balling out. Sure, it's not at the highest level like the NFL, but he's going out there competing, and I'm sure he's having a blast. When I was doing all my research and gathering information for this video, I thought this was intriguing. I found this on his Instagram in 2017. I'm not too sure what he meant by this. Maybe he was trying to tell us something or give us a sign. I'll let you guys be the judge in the comment section. In life, you got friends who use you for only their benefits and some who are just there because you have built something no one can break. College taught me that from year 1 through 5. I thank God for the people I call my best friends and family that I talk to on a regular basis. One thing I've learned is distance shouldn't separate your friendship. I've had a group chat with my best friends for over 5 years, and it's crazy how time flies. Love my day ones, but life lesson is make sure you know the people you let close to you and know their purpose for letting you in their life. Some will call you whatever just for the period of their life, then have nothing more once it's said and done. Keep pushing and follow your dreams, because one day those same people won't understand why they weren't a part of it. Huh. Interesting. What do y'all think about that? What do you think he's talking about here? Maybe he was going through something in 2017. You got to also remember that's around the time period of when the NFL, number one, didn't draft him, and number two, no team would take a chance on him. I'm sure that was a really hard time for him because as an athlete, it leaves you in a tough position. Because that's when you start questioning your abilities. Like, dang, am I even good enough to play at this level? Why doesn't anybody want me? And then number two, you start thinking about, well, maybe I should move on from football. Maybe I should be a coach or do something like that. If I had to give you my best educated guess, I think he's talking about when he was a starting quarterback for Nebraska, everybody wanted to be his friend, everybody wanted to be around him. And then once he was no longer with the team and no NFL team wanted him, he lost a lot of those so-called quote-unquote friends. All in all, though, it's really cool that he's still playing football, and I'm wishing him the best of luck moving forward. I hope he continues to see success in whatever he does and whatever he wants to pursue. I don't ever think he'll get a legit shot in the NFL, and also his playing days are more than likely coming to an end. He might have, what do you think? 6 years at max left in the tank, something like that. Since he's already dabbled into coaching a little bit, I like to guess and say he might get into that in the near future. Who knows? For now, though, he's still competing, and I think that's awesome. Let's address the two questions we always ask at the end of these videos. Number one, is Tommy Armstrong a winner or a loser? In my book, relatively simple, he is a winner. You know what I'm about to say next. Winning isn't about making it to the NFL or making it to the NBA. It's about getting up and working hard every single day and being the best version that Tommy Armstrong can be every single day. Don't compare yourself to other people because you're not them. If you're striving to be the best version of Matt Be Great possible, that's all that matters. That's what winning is to me, and also getting up after you got knocked down, and he's most certainly done that multiple times. Number two, and this is the really interesting one, why didn't it work out? Why did Tommy Armstrong not get a legit shot in the NFL? This one's cold cut and obvious. I'm going to give you the cold harsh truth. As much as I hate to say it, I don't mean this in a disrespectful way. He wasn't good enough. Simple as that. As much as I love to talk, y'all know this, if I can keep things short and simple, I like to do that as well, and that's what we're going to do here. The man wasn't good enough, and I hate to say that, I really do, because he seems like a great guy, never got in any off-the-field troubles whatsoever, at least not to my knowledge. To Tommy Armstrong, if you're somehow seeing this video, I'm wishing you the best of luck, my brother, and I hope you continue to see a lot of success in your football career and your life. I'm curious. Let me know your thoughts down below, but Roman.